The scariest time of my life was in the winter of 2012. Even now, I get chills just thinking about it. My husband and I were renting a quaint, old house on the outskirts of Amherst, Massachusetts, with our 3-year-old daughter, Abigail. Amherst, with its historical charm and quiet neighborhoods, seemed like the perfect setting for our little family. But instead, it turned into a nightmare. One afternoon around 4 p.m., I decided to give Abigail a bath. She loved playing with her bath toys, and it was the perfect way to keep her occupied while I prepared dinner. I left her in the tub, surrounded by her favorite toys, and went to the kitchen. A few minutes later, I heard her crying, the kind of cry that sends shivers down a mother's spine. I rushed to the bathroom and found Abigail standing in the tub, tears streaming down her face. Something red was running down her back. My heart dropped. I grabbed a towel, wiped off the red liquid, and to my horror, discovered a scratch. It looked like it had been made by a fingernail. But how? There was nothing sharp in the tub, nothing that could have caused such a wound. I inspected all her toys. They were soft, harmless, made of rubber and plastic. Nothing sharp, nothing that could explain the scratch. Abigail was sobbing, so I wrapped her in a towel and held her close. "What happened, sweetie?" I asked gently. She pointed to the hallway where the light bulb had burned out earlier. I turned to look, but there was nothing there. "What's in the hallway, Abigail?" I asked again, my voice trembling. "A lady," she replied. Her words sent a cold chill down my spine. There was no lady. I tried to calm her down, reassuring her that everything was fine. But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was very, very wrong. By evening, I had almost forgotten about the incident. Abigail was playing with her toys, laughing and running around as if nothing had happened. I convinced myself that it was just an accident, that maybe she had scratched herself somehow. At around 10 p.m., I decided to wash my hair before bed. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, blow-drying my hair, lost in thought. Abigail came into the bathroom, chattering away about her day. I smiled, listening to her sweet voice. Then she turned towards the bathtub and asked, "Mom, why did that lady hurt me?" My heart skipped a beat. I turned off the hairdryer and knelt down to her level. "What lady, sweetie?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She pointed to the bathtub. "That lady," she said. "She was here." My blood ran cold. "There's no lady here, Abigail," I said, my voice shaking. But she insisted, pointing again. She was right there. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing. Was someone in our house? I looked around, but there was no one. I felt a wave of terror wash over me. I grabbed Abigail and ran out of the bathroom, turning on every light in the house. My legs were shaking, and my heart was pounding. It was winter, and I was in my nightgown, but I didn't care. I was ready to wrap Abigail in a blanket and drive to my mother's house. Somehow, I managed to pull myself together. I put Abigail to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I prayed, desperate for some sense of security. I blessed the corners of the house and the bathroom, trying to ward off whatever evil presence might be lurking. I stayed awake, guarding my daughter's sleep. Every creak of the old house, every shadow that flickered in the dim light, made my heart race. I was shaking like a leaf, but I refused to let fear take over. My husband was working late, and I felt utterly alone. Time passed slowly, each minute stretching into an eternity. I sat, clutching a Bible, whispering prayers into the silence. The house was cold, the wind howling outside, rattling the windows, but I didn't dare move. I had to protect Abigail. Finally, I heard the sound of my husband's car in the driveway. Relief washed over me. When he walked through the door, I ran to him, tears streaming down my face. He held me, his warmth a comfort against the cold terror that had gripped me all night. Days turned into weeks, and the unsettling incidents seemed to fade. But one day, the landlord came by to collect the rent. He was an older man, with a kindly face and a gentle demeanor. As he chatted with us, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to ask him something. Something that had been nagging at the back of my mind since that terrifying night. "Has anyone ever died here?" I asked hesitantly, trying to keep my voice casual. The landlord looked surprised, then thoughtful. "Well, yes," he said slowly. "My mother passed away in this house, and my first wife too, both in the master bedroom." I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. The bed, The very bed we were sleeping in. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The room seemed to spin around me. My husband put a comforting hand on my shoulder, but it felt distant, like I was trapped in a nightmare. I didn't faint, but I was close. The realization that we had been living in a house with such a tragic history, sleeping in the bed where 2 people had died, was too much to bear. I couldn't stay there another night. We're leaving, I told my husband as soon as the landlord left. We can't stay here. He didn't argue. He had seen the fear in my eyes and felt the unease that had settled over our home. We packed our things that night, moving with a sense of urgency that bordered on panic. I didn't care where we went, as long as it was away from that house. We moved out the next day, finding temporary refuge with my mother. The house we had left behind felt like a distant nightmare, something out of a horror story. But the scar on Abigail's back was a constant reminder that it had been all too real. It was a small scar, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. But every time I saw it, I felt a pang of guilt and fear. What had happened in that house? Who was the lady that Abigail had seen? I didn't have the answers, and maybe I never would, but I knew one thing for certain. We were safe now. Away from that house, away from whatever had haunted us. I held Abigail close, promising myself that I would never let anything like that happen again. The winter of 2012 left its mark on us, a chilling reminder of the unknown and the unseen.